want to start this video by saying that I did actually order an RG353P device to review it when it eventually arrives, but while I wait, I've been testing out another Anbernic device that for some might scratch that nostalgia itch. But I don't review systems for the sake of nostalgia, except for one system that I will be touching on pretty soon. But for now, I would like to talk about the RG300X. This device is a beautiful mess because it's literally so good at first glance, but then you actually use it and you realize how good it isn't. But let's dive right in. The exterior design is very impressive. I've tested out a bunch of Anbernic devices, and while they all feel very strong and well built, none has stood out in the way that this one has. It's built out of plastic, but just saying that doesn't really do it enough justice because it just feels so good in hand. It's got some weight to it, and it genuinely feels really sturdy. The buttons are all either very clicky or very solid. There is no in between with this device, and I truly mean that. On the front, you're going to find your usual buttons and a full D-pad, along with some angled start and select buttons. On the top, you're going to find your shoulder buttons, 2 USB-C ports, and a mini HDMI port. On the bottom, you're going to find a reset button, 2 micro SD card slots, and a headphone jack. On the right, you're going to find a power button. On the left, you're going to find a volume rocker, and that's really about it. Now, the shoulder buttons and all other navigation-related buttons are very clicky, and they offer a very solid response when pressed. It's unlike anything I've ever used, and it does feel great, but I can see a lot of people disliking these buttons for that exact same reason. That's probably why I can't say that you will love it, because I know that I'm the minority when I talk about how much I like clicky buttons. And the front-facing buttons are very solid and feel really good to press. Anbernic makes some of the best buttons out there, and this device, because of the sturdy shell and, well, just the overall high quality of the buttons, offers a very solid experience here. I love the buttons on this device, but it's worth noting that these may not be for you, and if what I describe when it comes to these buttons doesn't sound appealing to you, then you probably won't find them appealing when you eventually get them. But I'm genuinely impressed with the construction on this device, and I would say that it's one that would only work for this specific model. But enough about that. This device features a 3-inch 640 by 480 IPS display that looks fine. It seems like a decent display, but the colors are kind of cool, and it doesn't get too bright either, but it is totally fine. This is a device that, as of writing this script, can be found for roughly $67, and clearly most of the budget must have gone into the build itself, because moving forward, everything else about this device is a mess, and this is one of the better things about it. It works, it's fine, but GBA does look kind of squished to me on this device, which is kind of unfortunate. This device does feature stereo speakers, but they do not sound very good. They aren't loud by any means and are definitely tinny, but are serviceable, as I wouldn't really expect a device like this to have necessarily great speakers. But have a listen. In terms of specs, this device features a 4770 dual-core CPU, 512 megabytes of RAM, and comes with double SD cards, with one being for the OS and the other being for games and the like. This also features a 2500 mAh battery, which is big enough, I would say. At least it should be big enough, but battery life on this device is not good. Now let's get into the bad stuff for the rest of this video. The OS is this terrible Linux skin that I have always hated on every device that I have seen it on. This could have strongly benefited from a more stripped down EmuLAC OS or something like that would be much better for organizing the games and just offering a much nicer interface. The interface is way too simple for how it looks, but also lacks a lot of quality of life features. Make this a remotely desirable skin. You can't search for games that you have in your library, and the most that you can do while navigating your games is just pressing the R button to skip a little bit more, to just go like page by page, which can still be pretty time consuming whenever you're searching for games within this interface, especially just considering how everything is organized. Not everything is even organized in alphabetical order. Things are set a little bit randomly here too. Navigating it is a pain, and it doesn't even look pretty while you're at it, which is a shame. This OS is always one that I dread seeing, and sadly, too many of Anbernic's budget devices have this OS. So let's begin with GBA performance, which should have been handled perfectly fine by a device like this, and there were some problems to note. So oftentimes when navigating the menu of Sonic Battle and many other games on the system, I came across a lot of stuttering that seemed to be completely out of place. These games were chugging during very strange moments, and that's something that I haven't seen on any other affordable handheld like this. GBA is usually stupidly easy for even a handheld like this one to handle, which kept me thinking, why is this the case on this chip or system at all? And is this also the case when testing out the literally only other systems I'm interested in running on this particular handheld, that being PlayStation 1 and SNES? Well, let's check it out in just a bit, but I wanted to say that performance in-game was mostly pretty good after getting through the initial chugging process, which would happen almost every time that I would start up a GBA game. Now let's talk about SNES performance, and it was very good actually. I didn't experience any of the issues that I would constantly get from GBA games for some reason. I started up Chrono Trigger and had a very good time playing it on the system. It even looks very good on the system, and the display does actually work well with it too. I was surprised considering that the GBA test left such a bad taste in my mouth, and it was only GBA. I can't emphasize that aspect enough, as much older Android phones have no problem emulating GBA games for the most part, but SNES was a very pleasant surprise, and it ran very well for every game that I tested for it, including Chrono Trigger, Mortal Kombat 3, and Zelda Link to the Past, but this game, on the contrary, did show some micro stuttering every now and then, which was pretty random still, but at the very least it wasn't so prominent. It's not something that I would worry too much about because it wasn't anything that really got in the way of the gameplay, so I didn't really mind it too much, even if it shouldn't be there. But either way, SNES performance was actually pretty decent. And lastly, there was PlayStation 1 performance, which was hit or miss here. Not unlike GBA, but it was really weird. I tested out games like Final Fantasy Tactics, Mortal Kombat 4, and Crash Bandicoot 3. While Tactics and Mortal Kombat performed pretty well, with very few issues to mention, if any, Crash Bandicoot performed rather poorly. There wasn't any audio stuttering to speak of, but the issues came in the frame rate. This game was obviously running at a lower frame rate since the game was so choppy. I don't experience that on other systems. Obviously, more powerful systems won't really go through that kind of issues, but this performance here was pretty disappointing. So it looks like some games will run pretty well, but other games like Crash Bandicoot are just a little bit too demanding for this chipset to be able to handle. And that's something that shouldn't really be the case because PlayStation 1 should be very easy to handle as it is. But either way, here we are still having issues with PlayStation 1 as well. Not with every single game, but still with a game as popular and not nearly as demanding, really, because Crash Bandicoot should not be that demanding for a system like this either way. But yeah, I wouldn't exactly recommend a system like this for PlayStation 1. So when it comes to the battery life, here we get roughly 2 hours of battery life at best. I don't know if there's something wrong with my unit in particular, but this is definitely on the lower side, and even GBA will keep it dead easily. So in conclusion, at first I really liked the system. The build and the buttons are really good to me, and I have to say that I really enjoyed the hardware aspect. But the performance leaves a lot to be desired, and the OS is certainly terrible. I would recommend the Miyoo Mini for considerably less and much more reliable performance and battery life over the RG300X any day. This device is pretty disappointing, and because it's Anbernic and they sell everything that they make at a premium, I have a tough time recommending this system to just about anyone when plenty of other smaller handhelds exist that are just a better value, a much better value at that. So no, don't buy the RG300X. Don't be fooled by its looks, because while it does look cool, and I honestly forgot what console or handheld this one is supposed to look like, I just can't really recommend it. It's not worth it for the nostalgia factor, and it's not really worth it for the games that you will be playing on this. Don't recommend it. So thank you so much for watching this video all the way up until the very end. I do very much appreciate it. And if you don't want to listen to me and still want to get yourself one of these, I am going to be leaving this link to Amazon, and it is going to be an affiliate link. So if you use my link, I do get a small commission that does help out the channel, which I do appreciate very much. And I would also love to give a very special thanks to all of the patrons, beginning with the tier 3s, which are going to be Omar. So thank you so much for everything, and then everybody else is going to be on screen. Thank you so much. And I also want to remind everybody that the Patreon will be shutting down as of the end of July. I don't remember exactly what date I set, but yes, don't bother supporting the Patreon, even though it is very much appreciated if you wanted to. Also, please make sure to follow me on Instagram, where I do post every now and then, and on Twitch, where I should go back to streaming pretty soon. I had to stop actually because I got pretty sick with you know what, but everything should be fine soon. And with that said, this has been Francisco from Tech Summit. Thank you for watching, and until next time, have a good one.